In the studio of Tenyek, I would like to welcome Viktor Orbán, the Prime Minister of Hungary. Good evening. Thank you for coming to us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
Mr. Prime Minister, we will soon be talking about how easy it will be for the Hungarian families, how much easier their lives will be starting from this year. But I suggest that before we get into this, let's talk about what the whole world is talking about now, about the meeting between Donald Trump and Zelensky yesterday, which was a disaster, or at least not as planned. What do you think about this?
First of all, these two things are interconnected. So how we will live in this and the next year, and how world politics and the fate of war and peace will develop, these two things are interconnected. So what happened yesterday, we should not follow it as a viewer, but as a contact. That's why it's bad news. What we saw yesterday was a bad thing. Because it would be good if the American president, who wants peace, would agree with the Ukrainian president on the peace issue. But that's not the case, and that's what we saw yesterday.
This is what they say. It was bad to even watch what happened. Zelensky was outraged. Donald Trump practically almost jumped out of the White House. Well, this is not what we wanted as the first step of the peace pact. But at the same time, could this be some strange dance move that we are only getting closer to?
I've seen something like this before, but behind closed doors. In fact, I was also part of the serious, difficult negotiations. Not with the American president, but rather in Brussels. But it usually happens behind closed doors. And so, it's a tough situation, but there's no awkward feeling, because when it all happens on stage, through cameras, then something is wrong. And besides, this is not a joke, because it's about the future and the war, that is, about the future of the Hungarians and Europe, and the peace of Europe and Hungary. And I'll say it again. I saw that there was an American president who surprised the world by doing what he promised. The whole world is very surprised, because he takes steps that no one expected, where he said in advance that he would do this. For example, he also said in the peace treaty that he would create peace through all means, and now he's doing it. And the Ukrainian president doesn't want peace. Or at least, he doesn't want peace with the conditions that the Americans offer. Meanwhile, this Ukraine, by the way, has been exposed to the end. A lot of people have died. Floods, terrible material destruction. Millions of people have escaped. Ukraine is essentially on a ventilator. If the European Union and the Americans don't give money, then the Ukrainians can't fight, and even the Ukrainian state can't stay calm. He negotiated with the American president in such a situation who wanted peace. That's why we had this bad feeling when we saw this negotiation.
It is special that the European Union immediately stood by Zelensky. Do you think this is a wrong move?
Well, the Europeans want war. The Europeans want to continue the war. There are only two countries in Europe that want peace since the beginning of the war. This is the Vatican and Hungary. Now the United States has joined us. Now we are in the majority, and we are stronger. But in the Western world, the war parties have always been in the majority. And now in Brussels, the war parties are still in the majority. Okay, well, let's hope for the best. I see that you are still optimistic about peace. Well, look, this is very important to us. We lost about 20 billion euros in 3 years. Because of energy prices, because of sanctions. So this war causes a lot of human suffering. It also risks World War III. Meanwhile, or beyond that, it means serious blood loss for Hungarians in terms of economy. So we are suffering huge business losses. If we had 20 billion euros and it was in the Hungarian economy, then everything would look better in Hungary. So we need peace not only from a Christian human point of view, but also from the point of view of our economy. If there is no peace, Hungary will not be successful in 2025 or 2026.
Let's set a good goal. There will be peace. There will be a peace treaty in 2025.
His is what the Hungarian government is based on.
That's right. And let's say that this will be the turning point. We heard world sensational announcements from you last year. Europe's largest tax reduction program. And we also said that Hungary will be the family's tax paradise. What does this mean?
Well, it's all true if there is peace. And I see that this is very close. Or if there is no peace on the front line, we can achieve that the risk of war spreading to Europe will almost fall back to zero. and then we will finally get a free hand. And according to our own ability, not in the shadow of a war threat, but we can work and live in Hungary in a way led by optimistic plans. The basic plan is to help families. Inflation and the 3 difficult years of war behind us have affected families the most. Families raising children. Now that there will be economic growth, we have put together a 21-point economic program. We can start. This will produce the money from which we can double the children's tax incentives. This is not a small thing. This means that 2 children will get, say, 80,000 forints of tax incentives. The 3 children will get somewhere around 200,000 forints. And this will certainly be done, because it's already in the law. And we can go beyond that. And this year, the 3 children's mothers will get tax incentives until the end of their lives. And from the beginning of next year, from the 1st of January, the 40-year-old mothers will get the same, who have 2 children. In the next year, in 2027, those who are under 50, then those who are under 60, and then the others. So in 4 years, we'll get to the point where in Hungary, those mothers who have 2 children don't have to pay a personal income tax. This is really an unprecedented world sensation. It's necessary, it's a tragedy, but let's face it, no one else could have done this anywhere in the world.
We calculated that in a good case, there could be a mother or a woman who doesn't have to pay a personal income tax for the rest of her life. Because until she's young, she doesn't have to pay it. And then she'll have a mother.
Yes, because, as you say, it's still the case that a mother with at least 1 child under 30 doesn't have to pay a personal income tax. So this means that women have already been born, girls, who will later become women, and mothers, and they live their lives in Hungary without having to pay a single forint of personal income tax for the rest of their lives. And this is good, because they do something that requires serious effort. Even if it's a sweet burden, but it's a serious burden, because you have to give birth to those children, then you have to raise them. So mothers do a serious job. And it's not just their private business, it's public business. Because if they don't take care of the children, what will happen to us? So this is the country and the community's biggest commitment, the most valuable commitment they can make, to take care of the family's lifestyle and to take care of the children's upbringing.
Is there an estimate that a family of 2 or 3 children can save this much? How much more money does it mean in the cash register?
Well, there are estimates, because you have to add the cost of living. So this is a very serious burden for the cost of living. Those who oppose this family tax exemption are attacking this side. So they say that this cost of living is unbearable, the shortage will increase, we cannot keep the state debt in check, but we have calculated this. So we have a plan on how to reduce the state debt at once, reduce the shortage of spending, and give it all to the families. It means a lot of money, so it depends on how much you earn, of course. So this means that in the case of a family earning 500,000 forints, we calculate it with a 15% income tax. We don't have to pay it.
That's right. They say it's an impossible mission. We just talked about it. But they like impossible missions, by the way. And you've already proven in a few things that you shouldn't listen to these people.
Well, people think that what others can do, others do. You have to do things that you think only you can do. That's the big thing. You have to put your head in the wood. This is something that I think that, apart from us, let's say, without the political community of the Bulgarian National Christian Committee, Hungary could not do this. I'm not saying that personally, but our community definitely has to do this. This is a big, serious, worthy, real, serious life goal. When you create such a tax system in which the mothers who adopt children quite simply get the greatest possible support to such an extent that the world can't imagine at any other point, that's something, isn't it?
That's right. And now it's an independent story, isn't it? So now it's still the case if the war is still dragging on.
Well, I think the war is already in that situation. So it has receded. Terrible things are still happening on the front line. But the approach of the front line to Hungary is almost inevitable that we can safely manage our economy according to the logic of peace.
Well, these are fantastic news. This money can stay with the Hungarian families if we keep inflation in check. But inflation is an interesting and dangerous dance step in recent times. If we look at the price of milk, milk is 39%, eggs are 35%, and oil is 11%. It's a serious problem. What can we start with?
We have to understand what's going on. Prices are not rising, they are rising. And we have to understand where the money is going. So if you take a moment to look at real life, you will see that our agricultural producers keep cows and produce milk. They get 200 forints. You go to the store, you pay 600. What's going on here? So it's quite obvious that the actors of the economy work with such prices that are unacceptable because they destroy families and pensioners. Families can be protected by tax incentives and pensions, but pensioners have to be protected by special tools. That's why we chose a method, an AFA refund method, with which we can give with a higher percentage of AFA. So protecting good things is as important as creating them.